Likewise, China should start an investigation into the Bidens, because what happened in China is just about as bad as what happened with Ukraine. So I would say that President Zelensky, if it were me, I would recommend that they start an investigation into the Bidens, because nobody has any doubt that they weren't crooked. That was a crooked deal, 100%.
Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Rafael P. Roman. You know, when it comes to presidential predictions, our first guest tonight has a reputation for getting it right. American University professor Alan Lichtman has correctly predicted the outcome of every presidential election since 1984. President Trump even congratulated the historian on making the right call in 2016, but Trump apparently overlooked one thing. Lichtman was also predicting his impeachment. Lichtman explains his thinking in his book, The Case for Impeachment. And while at least one critic called his work more wishful thinking than prediction, the possibility of impeachment is feeling more and more real by the day, with the White House now facing a formal inquiry in Congress. The charge that President Trump inappropriately pressured the Ukrainian president to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden and his son. But Trump and his defenders maintain that he committed no impeachable offense. Joining us now with more on all this is distinguished professor of history, Alan Lichtman. Professor Lichtman, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Certainly.
So, Professor, you were predicting Trump's impeachment for some time now. You have been. But many were calling for his impeachment just days after he got elected. Do the president's supporters have a point that this impeachment was inevitable? That is, that he was going to get impeached, whether he deserved it or not?
Absolutely not. Trump brought this totally on himself. You know, there's a famous Shakespearean quote, "Then they tell of the engineer who was hoisted by his own car." In other words, was blown up by his own act. That's exactly what Donald Trump does. Look, he dodged a big caliber bullet with the Mueller investigation. You know, the Mueller report was prolix. It was complex. It was equivocal. But now we have a simple and compelling story in the president's own words, and that is what is so damning. You cannot use the authority of your office and the power of the U.S. government to shake down a foreign leader to intervene on your behalf in an American presidential election. You know, Trump has been denying, in effect, that Russia did that. Now he's invited the Ukraine to do it. And just today, in a startling admission, he's invited the dictators in China to intervene in our election. This is a gross abuse of presidential power. One of the charges of impeachment that the House Judiciary Committee voted against Richard Nixon was abuse of power. It's a violation of the campaign finance law, which says that you can't take anything of value from a foreign national, much less foreign leader. He has committed obstruction of justice by intimidating and attacking witnesses in the case, and of course by stonewalling and withholding information. And this doesn't count where this impeachment investigation may yet go. Look, he didn't only deep six the conversation with Ukrainian President Zelensky, he also deep sixed in that super secret system conversations with the Saudi royal family and the dictator Vladimir Putin. There may be much worse stuff in there if Congress can get their hands on it.
All right, Professor, but let's stay with the Ukrainian telephone call. I have to say, one thing that surprised me when I finally read the transcript was that when the president asks for a favor, it is not about Ukraine investigating the vice president and his son, but rather about Ukraine looking into Russian interference into the 2016 election, and specifically about whether Ukraine has the DNC server in the Ukraine. Kooky conspiracy theater, perhaps, but quid pro quo for the investigation of a potential presidential opponent?
Look, you're absolutely right. The first thing he mentions is this insane conspiracy theory that the Russian manipulation of our election, confirmed by every one of his own intelligence and detailed in great depth in the Mueller report, was somehow a hoax concocted by the Democrats, Ukrainians themselves. That's bad enough. but he goes right on to talk about wants the Ukrainians to investigate this utterly debunked idea that there was some corruption in Ukraine involving Joe Biden and his son. What is so telling, he doesn't say one word about current corruption in Ukraine, even though his defenders have claimed that's what it's about. Not one word on that. He wants the Ukrainian leader to go back 5-6 years and investigate his political opponent as a favor. It may not be an ABC quid pro quo, but as his former attorney Michael Cohen explained, Donald Trump the code. But this code was so transparent, the middle schooler could decipher it. You know, I hear the echo of Don Corleone in The Godfather. We've been very, very good to you, and you haven't really reciprocated. And then the Ukrainian president says, oh, yes, we want that aid by your job. Yeah, but I want you to do me this favor, though. How could anyone not interpret that as quid pro quo?
Don't you think that this was sufficiently serious that if it were the case were reversed and it was about Don Jr., it would be taken more serious?
Absolute nonsense. Here is what actually happened back on. With the support of the Obama administration, all of our European allies, EU, the IMF, Joe Biden was working to get rid of a prosecutor who wasn't prosecuted and replace him with a prosecutor who would, in fact, prosecute. In other words, the real story is the exact opposite of what Donald Trump said. You know, if we investigate every lie that Donald Trump perpetrates, we'd be investigating every one of his political opponents. And moreover, if you were going to investigate this, and there's no ground, Trump just makes things up. You don't go to a foreign country and have them investigate your political opponent. That's against the law.
Okay, before the Ukrainian story broke, you criticized the Democratic leadership for thinking that impeachment would help Trump's reelection bid and argued that it would, in fact, help the Democrats. Some people citing the Clinton impeachment argue otherwise. How are they wrong?
They're totally wrong. Look, Republicans impeached Bill Clinton and they lost a few House seats, but they kept the House and they won the biggest prize in American politics. In fact, for 8 years, the presidency in 2000, an election that the Democrats, other than the impeachment, should have easily won at a time of peace, prosperity, domestic and foreign tranquility. The impeachment let George W. Bush campaign on restoring honesty and integrity to the White House. It kept Bill Clinton, the Democrats' best campaigner, on the shelf. And a quarter of all voters said the scandal was very important to their decision making. We're already beginning to see, and we're just a few days into the investigation, the polls decisively turning against President Trump.
Now, do you believe that the Democrats are now back in track in the impeachment process? Do you think the Speaker has done enough? I mean, some people are saying she should call for a vote of the House for official impeachment inquiry.
I actually think she should do that, but it's not necessary. The Constitution gives the House sole authority for impeachment by majority vote of the full House. It does not specify the procedures that the House must follow. I think it would be a good idea to have a vote, but I don't think constitutionally that makes a fundamental difference.
So do you think if the president is impeached, some people say there's little likelihood that a majority-controlled Republican Senate would ever oust him from office? What's your take on that?
One, it is the constitutional duty of the U.S. House to charge the president with articles of impeachment if they believe it is so justified. It is not their duty to consult a cracked crystal ball and try to figure out what the Senate may or may not do. Truth is, we don't know what the Senate may do once all the evidence is on the table. And things could come out that are far worse than what we've seen so far. For example, the Trump administration has deep six in that super secret server conversations with the Saudi royal family and with the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. There may be far worse stuff in those conversations than in the conversations with the Ukraine.
So quickly, in about 10 seconds that we have, your prediction that he will not only be, that he will be impeached and ousted from office?
I predict he will be impeached. Democrats have not gone this far without impeaching him, and the evidence is overwhelming. I make no prediction at this point about what the Senate may or may not do. I think everybody else is rushing to judgment.
Okay, Professor, well, thank you so much for joining us once again. It's a pleasure talking to you as always.
Thank you.